Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening from. Welcome to the Change Management Simplified podcast, where we will explain and discuss what change management is really about, using real examples alongside principles of change management based on our experiences on projects, transformations, change initiatives, and of course, the home experiences as well. Welcome back to the Change Management Simplified podcast. And I'm guessing you're returning because you actually are liking or enjoy listening to these short episodes on change management, stroke leadership. And therefore, what I'm going to ask you is if you could kindly subscribe or like, so that we can actually take this podcast and share it even broader than just yourselves and myself, and let's make it grow, because all in the end what we want is to have better leaders. It can be exhausting sometimes watching the same pitfalls from company to company, even though it does give me a job, it keeps me busy. However, I would rather see it work better than me having to pick up the pieces when the people you're working with have been completely broken. That's not the way we can do things. We can do it better to be able to have a better working force. And on that note, in addition to that, I would also like you to send through your questions or scenarios that you'd like me to discuss. As I said in episode 1, I don't want this to be a lecturing podcast. I think there's a lot of those out there. I want to make this interactive. I want to make it real, and I'm trying to use as many real examples that I can think of. Actually, all of them are real. They're based on my experience and observations. So please send in through your questions. I'm sure over the last 10 to 15 years of me working on projects, I'll be able to relate and be able to bring that example to life in one of these episodes. And on that note, we are going to continue from where we stopped last week with, again, the emotional intelligence topic. But in today's episode, we are focusing on social awareness. Now, remember, emotional intelligence is made up of 4 components. 1, self-awareness. 2, self-management. 3, social awareness. And 4, relationship management. We've covered in episode 5, which was very generic, what emotional intelligence is about, and the expectations from each of the components, in a very generic manner. Then we've decided to break it down per episode, as I promised. In episode 6, we spoke about the self-awareness aspect side of the emotional intelligence topic. Then in episode 7, we focused on the self-management. Today, as I said, it's all about social awareness. Why? Because it's important. It's core to us as human beings. And the question that I have in front of me is, how do you develop and benefit from emotional intelligence of social awareness? And why is it essential to your success and leadership in life and at work? Firstly, what is social awareness? Look at this. You need to look at this. This phrase in 2 parts. One is the social element of it, which means it's something beyond you, not thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about others. And when I say others, this includes everyone around you that you interact with, your family, your work colleagues, people you might just come across out on the street. You're out shopping. You need to have some social awareness, because all of us have different things on our mind at a point in time when we meet or when we bump into each other. And the way you react to a scenario that might have happened could actually dictate the result or the outcome of that particular scenario. And then the awareness side of it is actually you being aware of other people's emotions, how you deal with them. If you cannot, if you're unable to be aware of other people's emotions, then this world is going to be a little bit difficult for you, especially as a leader and as you climb up that triangle. It's all about people. You need people to help you do your job. You need people to make you success because they have to do all the activities that you need them to ensure that the vision is achieved. So what is really social awareness about? It's really just the ability for you to be aware of your emotions and those around you, as I've mentioned. Um, you need to be able to communicate with others or have the ability to communicate with others, but also to acknowledge and understand their emotions. I've touched upon all these points in the previous statements, but it's important that you hear it again because it's important and core to this particular component of emotional intelligence. When you look at all these aspects, being aware of other people's emotions, acknowledging them, being able to communicate, and when I say communicate, before you can communicate, you need to be able to listen. There's a difference between hearing and listening. And I'm asking you here for you to listen because as a leader or a transformation lead or change initiative lead, 50% of your time is going to be spent listening to people's issues, the challenges, the obstacles, and then understanding them. And when you understand them, you'd be able to help with unblocking any challenges that they're facing, but also to mitigate any issues or any conflict. So it's important that you are able to understand and observe and acknowledge the emotions that people are going through. And therefore, that means you have to show a bit of empathy. You have to put yourself in their feet. You have to walk this journey with them for you to be able to respond to some of the issues or the challenges that they're facing. So, what else do you need to do? You need to think before you speak. I'm hoping you gathered that from all the previous statements that I've made so far. You need to think forward. Think about the implications of your message. When you say something, what does that mean in the future? And when I say in the future for a project, it could be 6 months, 12 months. What does that mean? Even just beyond the go live aspect side of the project. What does that mean? What are the implications? You need to stop thinking about it now, deciding things and saying things that just get you across this week or this month without considering what will come after the month ends. And I'm going to give you an example to support this statement shortly. The other piece you have to consider is you need to, as I mentioned, you need to consider the reaction of people, how they react to your statement. So it's important that you deliver the message appropriately. Read the room, engage the emotions of those around you. I come across or have come across leaders who just do not know how to read the room and they just think they can speak the way they want to speak. Their body language even is worse. And when they try or force it because someone said to them, you have to try and be empathetic or show that you care, the body language gives it away. You see them, their hands are in the pockets. They look very uneasy. They don't feel comfortable. They're just reciting what's on paper. And it's just like, just chill, relax. But the only way you can do that is by actually understanding the emotions of others and also the message you're delivering and the impact it will have on them. It will make it easy for you to be able to deliver an appropriate message in an appropriate manner. And at the end of the day, you have to remember you have to work with these individuals. So unless you're making everyone redundant and you're going to run this project by yourself plus this company, then fine. This will do whatever you want to do, say whatever you want to say. But if you're going to continue to use people, and when I say use for their skill sets, people are going to have to work with you, have to work for you to achieve that vision, that long-term vision and success for yourself as a leader, but also as a company, then you need to consider the emotions and you need to be able to communicate appropriately because at the end of the day, you have to create these working relationships. You need them to survive and to be able to have a sustainable future. Now, an example here where I could think of loads, but one classic one, which to this day still I struggle to understand this particular leader. Big global project, over 300 people, drastic change in leadership. There was cutthroat changes, all those at senior level at the first layer. they're all made redundant, silently redundant, but of course we all found out because they disappeared and they were put on gardening leave. This new leader comes in. We don't know, but I can only assume that they told them the project's not doing well enough, the project team is not good enough, they're not delivering, so you have to go in and make them deliver. In his first town hall or meet project team meeting, he had the audacity to come actually and just say it out loudly to say, it's the project team's fault why the project is failing. Basically, all of us within that meeting, it was our fault. And he's come to rescue us and make it a success. And therefore, he's going to make us work hard, and we haven't been working hard enough. Now that didn't go down very well because I think I've put it very nicely. That his tone was different. I can't even reflect his tone because I thought it was the most appalling tone I've ever come across for a meeting and a message that's being delivered to over 300 people on a project that was critical to the success of the company, but also with the regulators as well. Secondly, it just receiving such a message just demotivated everyone. People have been working over the weekends, doing long hours. People were actually, you didn't have to ask for people to do to work overtime or to do weekends. And since that day, people don't even want to work weekends or even, go that extra mile because at the end of the day, these leaders come in with the perception, but also to, even throughout the project, that we didn't work hard enough and therefore we just have to do what we need to do. They actually forget sometimes that there are certain employee rules and regulations that you have to follow in certain countries, so such a message doesn't go down very well without you bringing um, regulatory implications to the company. And also, and just this particular individual as well, they came from a BAU function, a team lead. That is very different from leading a project, a global project with multiple work streams. Because you have to handle all these different personalities because you come across those who just focus on delivering don't have a lot of people skill set, but that's not why they're employed for this technical skill sets, and they can deliver what they need to deliver once requirements are provided to them. However, that's very different from leading a team that you have of about 6, 7, 10 people, but you know all of them, you've worked with them for years. In this case, you don't have that flexibility, you don't have that time. So the best you can do is be able to communicate and lead teams of people more productively by not criticizing them from the get-go. To me, this just actually just showed from the outset within this person being in the job 1 week, I just saw the lack of emotional intelligence, as they just were not aware of how bad they came across. They're just not aware of how their behavior and the mannerism and how they managed themselves actually adversely impacted everyone else on the project. It actually demotivated all those around us, and it was horrendous to see, to the point that we got to a point of not actually giving any more constructive feedback because it's painful to watch when everything is going downhill, as a change management practitioner, but also even the other work stream leads, because everyone's put in so much effort. It's just dreadful watching it, go down the drain just due to the lack of someone's, poor leadership, actually due to poor leadership, but also lack of emotional intelligence. So that's one terrible example. But that's where it is we get this a lot in senior stakeholders. So moving away from that, when does it go wrong? In some cases, with the exception of the example that I've just given you, number one, it's just not knowing what leadership really entails. And as a leader, to me, not to me actually, you're expected generally to strive towards the long-term vision. But here at this point in time, in the example I gave you, that leader was only just thinking about at that point, I need to tell people they're not doing their job, so I am going to drive them to work harder. But you can do that without saying it out loudly. Just apply some common sense in how to communicate with people. And again, the other point is you have to motivate and lead a team to success. This was not being achieved based on the example that I gave you. And as I mentioned, you need to understand all your stakeholders. As for the stakeholder piece, this transformation lead did not even bother. One did not bother to understand the stakeholder needs, and as all of them were in the same bucket as us on the project team, the end users were being resistant to the change. But that was not the case. The case was their user requirements were not being fulfilled, and they were not prepared to sign off anything that did not meet their requirements because they needed these requirements to be met for the external submissions to the regulator. The other piece was post, you have the other element you have to have is you have to have good stakeholder engagement. You have to apply stakeholder engagement. If you don't engage your stakeholders and take them on the journey with you, you will struggle when it comes to the transition phase. And I can guarantee you, you will fail, and the project would spend so much money during that phase, a lot more than what you expected, because the end users would not be prepared to accept the poor quality work that you're actually delivering to them, because at the end of the day they have to suffer the consequences going forward for having um, a half completed product. You also have to create desire for the change. I can tell you that transformation lead described in that example did not create desire for the change. It was actually dread, and the fact that people were not going to get the requirements that they expected, but also because they were just going to try and bulldoze and bully everyone into what they wanted. That's not the best outcome for the company. The other times when this happens is when someone's just self-centered. They think they're the best and the greatest thing on earth, and everyone should be happy that they're working and leading this program. They're forgetting they can't deliver this project by themselves. They need people around them. They need people to work with them to make it a success, to get it to the end. But when you have such poor reasoning capacity and thinking, again, very demoralizing, very off-putting.
Now, if you find this podcast beneficial and interesting to listen to, do me a favor. Please press follow and subscribe and share with your friends and families.
How does it go wrong? This is when you keep yourself isolated from others, and I'm gonna try and take this, to now our society, our children's generation, so away from work. My greatest concern, just to share with you here, is when I look at the whole leadership aspect of anything, at home or at work. I'm quite worried about the future generation that we are raising, because unfortunately with so much technology available to us, so many devices, we find, most of our kids, and I'll say we're offering our kids more automated devices for them to keep them occupied. That's their social life. They're sitting and playing games, for hours. They are on a computer, on YouTube, listening to music or watching whatever they're watching. There is very little social or socialization. Even at home, you find everyone's in their room doing whatever they're doing. They're not really forcing themselves to interact or playing games like we used to. I know we do it during Christmas times when we've got loads of kids around and interacting, or during some, big holidays, but it's quite worrying. And if no one's worried about the future leaders that we're raising, I think we need to do something about it. And that I don't know yet. But as I was writing up or preparing for this episode, it made me think, what type of leaders are we raising for the future if we don't give them the opportunity or put them in an environment where they are forced to socialize like the way we used to? We would We didn't have the devices to occupy us, but we'll be out playing with our friends, with our neighbors, you know. Yes, we do after school clubs and stuff like that, but not many of us are able to afford that. So if we can't create that environment at home where we are of, you know, giving those opportunities of social interactions, what leaders are we actually raising for the future? How are they going to treat us? Are they not going to have any empathy or compassion? Are they going to start passing policies that just suit the automated world, and as human beings, we are secondary to this earth? Yeah, that's one thing that's bothering me today, but I just thought I'd share because I thought it was befitting for this episode and just to put it out there in your minds as well. So, on that note, the other point how it goes wrong is being stuck in the old ways as well. I know I've mentioned about the earlier point, which is our kids, they're more on devices now, not going out anymore, but also being stuck in the old ways of doing things and not adapting to the changing environment that can also hinder your emotional intelligence for self and social awareness because you don't want to change. If you're older, you're 80 or 70 years old, I can let you off the hook. But if you're below that, I would encourage you to adapt accordingly so that you can at least feel part of the world and the journey and the progress that we're making. So the message to me on these 2 points is find the right balance. Let's find the right balance for our kids, but also let's find the balance for us as we're getting older. Let's keep up with the progress in the countries in the world. And also remember to say thank you. When you interact with your project team members, say thank you. Thank you goes a long way. You know, show your appreciation. I've worked with people who push people to the limit, the project teams to the limit. They're exhausted, they're tired, but even at the end of it, this lead does not even say thank you to everybody. Does not say thank you to anyone. And I'm just thinking, just pretend like you care. Just pretend like you're thankful for them working with you because at the end of the day, without them, you'd not have been able to meet this deliverable. The other point when it goes wrong is the lack of leadership with soft skills. Soft skills are underrated. However, as a leader, let me tell you, as you go up to the top, you've heard me say this in episode 5, episode 6, episode 7, and now in episode 8, the higher you go, the more your soft skills will make you successful. The technical skill set plus experience over the years is just an entry to that level. If you want to be at the top and remain to the top until when you retire, your soft skills are key. And that means including application of your emotional intelligence. How do you develop? Number 3, you need to lead and not to manage. That's one thing. Very few senior leaders are able to actually differentiate those two roles. They're very different. The best who have executed this very well are those who can lead, and that means they can motivate the team. They don't have to be completely technically astute to the topic, but they need to be able to motivate the team, especially in a project environment, because you would have some peak and intense and very stressful phases, and you need someone who's not going to back down to that stress, but be able to uplift the team. They also ensure that we remain focused, on that long-term goal, that long-term vision, that we didn't get stuck in the weeds of trying to resolve something while time was going past us. They always, managed to get us out of the detail, come up with a quick solution to get us across the line. They also created a very collaborative team working environment, and this is what you need because you get the creativity out of people. It pushes them to their best and therefore increasing their performance. They also empowered the team. So what I like the best transformation leads about, and again, I'm thinking about 2 individuals in particular, what they did was empower me to do what I needed to do from a change perspective. I went out, put out the strategy, put it into practice, put it into place, worked with all the various stakeholders. Where I got obstacles is when I went and said, I've tried this, I've done this, but I'm still challenged. I need your help. I need your power and influence because this is about a power influence issue. They'll get up and go and resolve it for me. I would deploy them as and when I need to. At the same time with the project team here, we needed those leaders to go and unblock any obstacles that we're facing. Any fights we're taking on with the systems guys, the individuals there, and be able to represent the team as well. The other piece that I would encourage you to do to help you with your development is get out of your comfort zone. You know, go out, mix and mingle with different people, different cultures, community, with different functions, different teams, the impacted stakeholders. Get to know them and understand how this change impacts them. If you can understand how it impacts them, it's easy for you to communicate and relate to them, and therefore put an engaging message and create that desire with them. Knowledge is power. It is true. If you don't have that knowledge about your impacted stakeholders, you will also struggle to sell this vision to them.
Now, if you find this podcast beneficial and interesting to listen to, do me a favor. Please press follow and subscribe and share with your friends and families.
Number 4, what are the benefits of social awareness? For me, it puts you in a better place to easily adapt to the change, and therefore easy for you to, I would say, to influence others. And I want to use influence in a constructive way, not in a bad way. But you're able to influence others about using the positiveness of the message and acknowledging their emotions, but also understanding the vision and why the change initiative has to happen. You can easily sell that message to the stakeholders, who can then also feel your passion and join you on this journey. If you're not able to maintain that ongoing support from the stakeholders, it becomes a battle to get this project across the line. And sometimes you can end up failing and losing your job. As I mentioned, it enhances team performance. Give them the freedom to do what they need to do. Empower them, but be there to guide them when they need to. When you see they're astray, be there, be available. Also, you're able to recognize and understand people's emotions, and therefore easy for you to resolve conflict, because you can see it from both perspectives, but also you can control your emotions. If they're having a blowout, you don't need to go out and also shout and say, stop shouting. That is not the way to go. What I'm leaving to the last is that you become a better communicator. Communication is key to you as a leader, because one, you're giving instructions to your communicating stakeholders about what the change is about or what the result's about. You want to be clearly understood and not misunderstood, because if people misunderstand you, they won't be able to satisfy, for example, the requirements that you are specifying or the expectations. And also the message that people perceive will be different. So it's important that you become a good communicator. So if you are socially aware with all the components I've laid out in what goes wrong, when it goes wrong, how it goes wrong, and how you can develop, then your communication abilities becomes much easier. So what am I saying? Why is self why is social awareness important? It's because it's key. It's core to your success. It's core to your way of living. So it's important that you learn or develop it as soon as possible, because this is a skill we need to be able to integrate, but also to socialize with people, but also to work and talk to people. You'll come across people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different communities, and you need to be able to adapt and read the environment and be able to communicate at a wavelength that people understand you. So if you're a leader, the best leaders are able to relate to those they're talking to or to those they're leading, because you speak the language that they speak. And in summary, that's all I have for today. Next week, we will discuss emotional intelligence again, but we will be focusing on the relationship management, which is also key, because for you to be able to have a good working relationship and maintain those working relationships even at home, you need to be social aware. You need to be socially aware. We'll discuss more about that in the next episode. Thank you for listening.
If you find this podcast beneficial or interesting, please press follow, like, or subscribe. Lastly, and of course, don't forget to spread the word by sharing. Thank you for listening.